Good morning, everybody. I hope that everybody is doing fine today. It's Friday. You know, it makes sense. The conference is 3 days, and we're doing talk about testing on the last day. And I'm gonna prove you why it's not a good idea to do that on the last day. But anyway, if you're here, I hope that you really do care about testing. And I, as a QA person, want to test that. Clap if you care about testing. Hey, I see you. No, but so why am I here and who I am? That's me. I was looking for something, and the first fact about me is I was born in the USSR, so I needed to prove that with that beautiful picture of me. I studied journalism. I speak 3 languages, visited all 50 states, and currently I'm QA lead and a consultant. Why am I here? Well, I need to add probably that what makes me a good tester, all of this plus a little bit of OCD, ADHD, anxiety, perfectionism, working at the customer service helped a lot, honestly, because all that helped me to learn how to understand people and learn their reactions and emotions and feel, how we can all fix it. So how it all started, the whole topic was born literally out of this word, because if you use Slack, if somebody typing you see the typing thing going on, right? And I was literally typing to one of the devs to tell that we have an issue. And before I finished the sentence, he literally says, "Oh no, something broke." I immediately erased everything I wrote and oh my God, yeah, you're right, sorry. And right after that, I had a meeting with my manager, and he was like, and my manager is the best manager, it's for real, he's the best. And we were talking, and I was like, and he said you always, when you message me something, it's like always something bad happened. Like, what? And we just started discussing and talking about this, and then I started realizing, and it's like flashbacks in my head. I just remembered my product manager who said, "Oh, maybe don't test it because you destroy it." And then I remember another meeting where but engineer manager says, "Okay, Corey, I reviewed your PR, everything looks good, but now Sergei's gonna test it." What? No, and then I have Brandon, he's a junior developer, he's a sweetheart. And when I tuple him, I always hear the same thing. "Hi." And then I realized that I'm actually is bad news. I am the person, unfortunately or fortunately, I'm bad news. I truly believe that we all are a little bit lazy. Well, maybe more than a little bit. We all like to do less, and there is a law for that, law of least effort. In general, we want to do something like our job and to get there super fast, right? And then there's a QA person comes in and and bumping you with questions, bumping you with bugs tickets, bumping you with, "Can we pair, please?" And then I started remembering more and more and more examples when in life, developers, product managers, team leads, my colleagues, testers, somehow I was the person who would always bring bad news, even to my colleagues, testers, because I would be like, "Hey, let's pair on this, I want to learn this part of the system." And, it makes the person work. So the idea was born in my head that if I do my job super well, somehow it's going to be bad news. Because product manager Maria once told me that I need to test something, and I start testing it. 2 minutes in, I realized that this is just, I'm going to use the word garbage. The whole feature is just unnecessary, complicated. It doesn't fit with the whole idea of our application. It's just not there. It's like, I don't know, it's purple when everything is red. It's right there, and you have a question, why? So I come back to her, and I'm, "Maria, I don't think it's a good idea to release that." And what do? We do not release that. So literally bad news for the company, because now let's do the math. Let's do dev salary by hour, multiply how much time he spent. Product manager, a few people who also had that crazy idea. The idea was crazy, for real, I swear. And then my work, because even those 2 minutes, it was enough, the company paid me money. So it was bad news from the start. Did I delay releases? Hell yeah, I did. And I know you might be like, oh, this QA person. Oh my God, that whining QA. Well, if you think that, then it's you. Because I do no bad. It's all team effort, and we're gonna talk about this. So to talk about this, I invite the one and only person who gave us so much. I'm dead inside, all those things, But one of my favorite things in episodes ever is the weight loss training, and in season 5, when he walks in a jumpsuit, which he is super happy that he bought and not rented, and he says, "We're here because there's something wrong with society." Jim says, "Well, you always say there is something wrong with society. Maybe there is something wrong with you." And he replies, "Well, if it's me, then society made me this way." It's genius. I talked to my therapist about it because of my childhood in the USSR. You saw the picture. But when you're surrounded by the people who are not supporting healthy QA or not supporting any healthy relationship, you are gonna go down. You are going to do that. So, culture. So the rest of the talk is purely 100% my experiences going from 0 to hero. Literally knowing nothing about software, nothing about testing. There is a tester here who I once said, "What is an API?" And she explained it to me. So I was that guy 7 or 8 years ago, and it all started with my first job. If I could wave a green flag, it would not fit here. Because as soon as I got hired, I got into an environment where I felt safe, I felt understood, and I felt extremely supported. Examples, how it works. Well, like Deborah said, right, she says, when I jump on a meeting, I don't ask you about your project, I ask you, how are you? And my lead and manager, he would always ask me, how are you? He would not ask me about anything else, so it definitely helped a lot. So that was the first thing immediately. Pairings. Pairings were amazing help, especially for a newbie, to learn the system, to learn, the ways how to do something correctly. Maybe even better when the person who's helping you will do better in the future. And it comes from literally everybody on the team. It comes from your colleague tester, it comes from the developer, it comes from a product manager, it comes from anybody who touches the application and actually affects the application. And I was honored to work there, and I was super happy that I got to be where so the team structure was amazing, a tester per team. So you have your dedicated product manager, you have your dedicated UI, you have your dedicated backend. You are there is DevOps and also UI, UX. And how many conversations during that, sometimes, because I was new to software, I would drive home and I'll be like, I didn't do anything. I was just talking the whole day, right? Sometimes it's like, what happened? But little I knew back then that it was so fundamental. Those little chats, those little moments when product manager comes to you and be like, Sergei, listen, do you know that thing with the check-in? Can you tell me how it works? Because we're gonna work on this. What do you think? I was asked what I think. What do you mean what I think? I worked at Starbucks a few years ago. I was just like, I didn't know anything about gym memberships and stuff, and now you ask me what I think, and it was so important. And then, because he asked me how I think, I developed another universe where I'm a customer, and I started relating to the end user, customer, client, whatever you use, right? The person who used the application and pays you money. I started relating so much, and then my manager introduced the concept of hats for a tester. The pretend that you're a grandma who cannot hear, cannot see, and just try to break. Monkey testing, like shoe testing, all of that, it was so much fun. I've learned so much, and the craziest thing that I started believing that everybody works like this. That everybody's happy, unicorns and confetti everywhere, and just everything works. I mean, obviously nothing really like worked all the time, right? It's impossible. You always have a little bit of, just a bug pop in here, pop in there. The cool thing was, it was blameless. Even though you literally sit in that meeting, you're like, what? That was me. Nobody would tell you like, oh, it was you. What would happen is my lead or my developers, they would ask a question. Why do you think it happened, right? They would ask you, what did you learn from this mistake? And that culture was amazing. It was so good that I left it because I got a LinkedIn message from a company which works with the Kubernetes. And my team was working with Kubernetes at that time. And I was like, oh my, I don't know what it is. And as you know, I'm extremely adventurous. Like you tell me there is some unknown, I will jump. I will jump immediately. So I switched jobs, literally believing that everybody works like this. The culture is always like this. And I go there, spoiler alert, 3 weeks in, I swear, I was like, that would look weird on my LinkedIn to see 3 weeks of work experience because I was literally thinking, how do I quit this? And I was in onboarding. The environment, the culture, there was no culture. There was just shock. I never, I worked at the first company for 3 years, and then I realized in the morning, I don't want to click this button. I'm like, I just don't want to log in. And let's go with examples. Zero support. Zero. When I say zero support, you're dropped in the environment. When you wake up, you're given Kubernetes and management of Kubernetes, an Excel spreadsheet with the steps how to test it. And you're told, go and learn, and nothing else. Another red flag was that there were new 5 QA hired at the same time. They said that it was because they got a little bit of money and they wanted to grow. Little we knew that before us, 4 of QA just left. So the red flag number 1, do not talk or disturb any other testers or developers. I was explicitly told that. I was explicitly told not disturb. If you have any questions, ask a question in a public Slack channel, quote, so I can see what you don't know. There was I swear to God, you probably even use that software. The only thing that, a disclaimer, it's been 3 years ago. I hope things changed. But 3 years ago, it was like that. It was like that developers have their own team. Testers, they have their own team. Testers do not interact with developers at all. Zero. Everything is developed and just dropped on the developer, on testers, and testers have 3 days to literally test all of the new versions of Kubernetes, possible. Everything, all of the clusters, obviously all of the integrations with Azure and other, it just was a nightmare. And another red flag which I learned is if anybody tells you how much time you are allowed to spend on a task, run. Just run. Just because I was in the meetings where 7 testers, and a manager goes and says, you're going to test this, I give you 2 hours. You're going to test this, you're going to give me 3 hours. So, and obviously you know how it went. Talk about blameless, didn't exist. If you didn't test something, it was released. It's open source, so there were bugs created by clients, obviously, in GitHub. And if it was something what was related to yours, you would be publicly, in front of everybody in the meeting, ask, how did you miss it? Not what did you learn, but how did you miss it? Why did you miss it? So that was the environment, absolutely different from what I had before. And obviously there was no support, there was no help, there was nothing. And the worst part was that I could do nothing. I literally could do nothing. I wanted to be a good QA. I wanted to test. I wanted to take time and actually interact with developers. This is the only time in my life when I heard from the developer, it works on my machine while we were pairing. So developers also, because they were in a shock, not in a culture, but in shock, they also developed that sense of like, okay, you guys on your own, we're on my own. My goal is in 4 hours to develop this, so I'm just gonna drop it to you. Bye. So that was how it was. It was horrible. And obviously, the best part of it is that I honestly waited for 6 months so it doesn't look weird on my resume. But I also managed to, because I'm a person who wants to learn, we were not allowed to learn about the whole system. You were allowed to learn only about, like, be an SME, right? Just this part. So I spend my weekends and nights and I get CKA, administrator, all of that certification. And I actually learned a lot about AWS, and but it had to be done outside of work hours, because at 2:40 p.m. you literally get the message from a manager, what are you doing right now? Can you pair it with me just to show me what are you doing right now? So the trust, zero. Deborah was talking about trust. Nothing. It just didn't exist. Hopefully the things changed. So obviously I changed after that, and I leave the company and I go to a startup. And that's just a wild horse. If you worked at a startup, it was so wild, and it is still wild because I still work there, and it's been 3 years. I worked there because I got to work with the same manager from my first job. He's right here. This person, Butch Mayhew, he is amazing. Honestly, if you know him, if you work with him, he's the reason I got so much learning to do, and I hated him for that. But he was pushing me in the most gentle but like a little bit hard way, and I got to learn a lot in a startup. There is a crazy things, and as a QA, my least favorite is early release often, because guys are obsessed, and girls, developers, obsessed about it. They just like, done, boom. Obviously, it didn't sit well with me because I couldn't test everything. So I invested a lot of my time in automation. Now we have 100% coverage for all APIs. It's like 1,500 tests running every time when PR is open to staging. It is a little bit crazy, but when you are the only QA person for 7 developers, and you have very good companies invested in you, and you don't want to disappoint, because and again, we have a absolutely blameless environment. Nobody would ever say, oh, Sergei, how could you miss it? No, they would go to developer. How did you write like this? And I'll be like, okay, I told you he was not good. But culture is very, very important, and obviously we're gonna go from that to another thing. This slide, if you read it as QA has no money, that's not it. If you read it as I'm gonna be like, oh, poor QA, we just struggle so much, that's not it either. It's about the situations when you're a good developer, you're a good dev person, you literally dedicated, and you give your 100%, 120% to your company, and you really love what you do, but just you got that person, or maybe people, and I've met him, and I just want you to know that it happens. I honestly cannot express enough that I have met those people. I talked to a person 2 weeks ago who literally is a QA for 7 years, and the person told me, I hate technology. Like that, there are people like this. So when I was talking about, like kind of giving shade to managers or management or developers, I do not shy away from the fact that there are people, and I met those people who just don't like what they do, or they don't want to learn, or they don't want to grow. They've stuck in that hamster wheel, and they just run in, and they're absolutely fine. So what can you do? Well, if you can fire them, if you can. But obviously, the better approach would be to try to actually grow QA and develop them, right? So do it yourself. Do it yourself. I'm not saying right now, as if you're a developer, don't give it to QA and start testing, but start promoting QA culture. Start bringing this up to, on the meetings or in just conversations, or just honestly, I think some of the QAs may be even afraid because like Deborah said, there are different jobs they worked before and they come to this company and they had toxic environment. Now they're just scared of developers because their previous manager, which I had, said, don't bother developers. Maybe they have PTSD from that. So do it yourself, and if you're a product manager, honestly, based on my experience and the features which were rolled back from staging, involve QA early. And I know, so this is bad news if you're a product manager, because now I tell you, do more job, do more work, bring another person, listen another opinion. But if you have now we forget about poor QA. If we have a good QA, if you don't do that early, that's gonna backfire. I am gonna tell you that the feature is trash and it's not gonna be used because I've worked with this company for so long and I totally understand the user. And I'll give you the points. I will not be like, oh yeah, trash it. I'll be like, look, this. And I could do that when you showed me a mock-up in Figma. I could do that. So ask for their input at any point of time. Like absolutely do that. If you have a great QA, and actually if you don't even have a great QA, try to promote them, try to teach them to think right about end user and about output. If you're a developer, first one, I am so grateful for every single developer who has ever paired with me. Because it goes both ways. Because I have paired with developers because I was an SME on one area, and then developer comes to me and be like, hey, so this and that on PTO, this just left, so I'm assigned to this. Can you tell me how it works? So when I say pair with QA, not necessarily to teach them, but maybe to learn from them as well. Because if you have a great QA, that person knows a lot about the system, just a lot. As before you merge, you hate it. If you're a developer, you hate it. But again, when I say ask, don't send me a Slack message. There are automation channels which will tell you if it's safe to merge or not. But maybe don't do that on Saturday at 4 p.m. I've had people doing it. Having literally automation read. They would literally merge. And we all wake up on Sunday and what happened? So, but also, if the feature is touching a lot of the areas of the system, ask for real. Send the message. I get those messages, and I honestly, because I really, really care, as you can tell, I'm obsessed with the testing, and about end user, I will actually take a little extra time and go and make sure that your feature, and because I keep in mind all of the APIs we have, I will go and try to find, what's broken, possibly, hopefully not. And if you're a lead, that's very simple. Give QA a room to lead because just trust. Give them trust and try to literally encourage them to do those things as well with developers, with product managers. It's not only should come in from those people, but from QA as well, and encourage them to grow. I'm here right now because I had the manager who was constantly pushing me. When he sat down with me to write my first automation test, and I hated him. I honestly was like, oh my God, and it was Ruby. Ugh. So it was nightmare for me. If you're a tester, or if you have testers, just send them. Because ask questions. Have you seen the movie Finding Nemo? Do you remember seagulls? Mine. So the tester should be, why? That should be the tester, seriously. They should constantly ask questions. Why is this the way it is right now? Why is it working or why is it not working? Why this step is here and not there? I do that all the time because I literally question not your code quality, but the system, the application. So that's very important. And I just know that I do that constantly and I recommend to do that. Take the lead, again, be the one who asks the developer to pair with you, especially if the system is complicated. On the product, because I was working in the company where I was an SME, when I was working with Kubernetes, I got, first of all, bored just looking at the same system all the time. And second of all, when somebody's in PTO, sick, or anything, or you want to go and help, you take so much time to learn, and your manager tells you have only 2 hours. So own the product. Try to own the product. That's why I went and got the Kubernetes Administrator Certificate, because I really wanted to understand how the whole thing works. And don't automate everything. I know that I just said that I have 100% coverage, but it's not every single parameter. You know what I mean? Like if you work with APIs, I didn't like extensively cover it. I just made sure that happy paths work, that I can sleep well when, when it's green. Well, at least the happy path is not broken. But I should add, don't automate everything, but automate something. At least happy path, of course. And so just want to say that if you don't want to do DIY, there are people who are willing to do that, who will come to you and tell you what to do, how to do it, and not only how to do, like force you to do that, but honestly be with you on the same page and cultivate the good culture, which I was talking before. Silly Goose Lab is my consulting company. We're silly about everything but testing, so we're good. And because by the end of the day, all of you who are in the room, everybody who clapped when I said, if you care about QA, we all care about end user. Because end user, again, like I don't want to get, back to finance and stuff, but end user is the person who's gonna say it just works, right? Use it and love your company and defend it the way I defend when somebody tells me that Sam's Club is better than Costco. Don't even start. Just because Costco is that it just works for me. It's so good. I mean, it's not about them, right? But my point is that by the end of the day, it's team effort. It's just team effort. And I know I'm saying like such a basic things, but they do matter. It's like literally, it's the cheesiest possible phrase, but that's the one we all care about. And that's the one which we should care about. So if you have any questions, I have any probably answers, but I will try if you have. Any questions about QA, anything? No? You have questions? Yeah.
I was curious about, so for the developers, when we're building a test plan sometimes, using an Excel sheet, what are some of the key things that you like to see from us or from developers in that test plan when you're going through testing, feature or even bug?
Okay, so first of all, like I recommend honestly the same way the product involves QA early. So if you work, especially if you're working on a new feature, definitely involve QA. Somebody from the area, like you already know who's a strong QA at your company. You already know. So bring that person, especially if they're on your team, and just ask them questions and ask, because I might give you super different answers from the person who taught me how to test. We will give you different because I work differently than him. He might tell you that, I just want step by step. This is the happy path and this is the craziest path. I need names of all of the new tables you develop in database. I'm going to do that. Send me the link for the new documentation. They might ask you that. I will just jump on a call with you and I personally will ask you how it's going to work. Like, what is your vision? And then immediately try to give you feedback if it fits in the system, if it looks good. We might bring in the product manager. But by the end of the day, when I test, I honestly don't even look at AC. I never look at acceptance criteria. I don't care about this when I first time open. I'm a newbie. I'm that hat of I just opened it. I'm a new person at the company which uses this software. So I'm just gonna go and click around. So you see it's different. So that's why just invite to pair, and because you will create that bond, because I'm the only QA for 7 devs. With each of them, I have different relationship. There's QA, there's a developer, I almost don't even test. Like honestly, just because there is so much trust, and I know when he needs me, he will hey, this is the area. So I would say start with pairing, for sure. Because that's gonna be different. There's no golden rule, this is how it works. That it's all about you. Thank you for the question. Yes?
For collaboration, are there any regular touch points you have with the product team and developers, or is also a lot of informal? What's the best mix that you find?
For exploration, you said?
Just generally for your collaboration.
Oh, for Michael, so, well, it depends on at what stage we are right now, right? If it's a new feature, and if it's like a ready feature. So sometimes developer, like I come back from PTO, I had no clue what was going on for 2 weeks. And I would jump on a call with developer, and I would literally, if it's super complicated, I would ask him the technical levels. So if there is new API, right, with what services it interacts, right, or what database, like new tables I need to look at. If it's like ready product, it's honestly, all I care personally is the technical part, like what new things are added, but the rest, I will make sure that it makes sense. I honestly, one of those QAs who for me, the most important part, it makes sense to me because I represent the end user. So as a developer, again, just give the person, and most of the developers, you might know even where your weak spots are. And again, because I know my 7 developers, I know exactly where to look when they release code. Again, like one developer, I don't almost never look. There is one developer, I just know happy path will not even work. I just know it. I just know it. And then he would be like, you broke it. No, but it happens, I don't know, maybe you even know them. But honestly, like there are pinpoints. I think the most important part for the QA to know the technical, if it's a new API endpoint, if you work with APIs, right? And a database, what added, what's new. But it should make, like, I know it sounds weird maybe even, but it should make sense. It should make, when you tell a QA what you develop, they should put it in the system, like in a blueprint, already ready, right? And be like, okay, does it make sense or not? So I would just say that. I hope it answers. Yeah? Thank you. Any more questions? Well, thank you very much. You were amazing.